Hello, everyone. This is Ben Gerber. I'm here with Tom Holder. We are the partners here at Gerber and Holder, and we're going to talk about a topic today that is very important to a lot of our clients. And that question is, what happens after I settle my case with regards to the settlement process? When do I get the money and so forth? So, Tom, why don't you walk us through the settlement process real quick so everyone understands how it actually works?
All right, thank you, Ben. So first, when a case is settled, let's just say for argument's sake that we had a mediation and we were able to agree to a settlement number that day. The first thing that will happen is that we have to wait for the defense attorney who represents the insurance company to prepare the settlement documents. Generally, we give that lawyer about 2 weeks to get that done. Usually it's done more quickly, but sometimes we have cases where the insurance lawyer was not involved in the case at all and just got the file at the last minute. So in that case, the lawyer has to learn a little more about the case to prepare the documents. Once we get the documents, we then review them, make sure all the numbers are correct, and then we can quickly send by email nowadays the settlement documents to our client. We're now using Adobe Acrobat for signature so that we don't need to have anything printed out or mailed, and it can be done quite quickly. And we tried to get that out within a day of getting the settlement documents.
Now,
Once our
after the settlement documents come in and after they've been reviewed, um, does the client receive their money at that point in time?
No, first thing is that we send the documents to the client. And of course, we're happy to go over as much or as little of the documents as the client wants. Some people have a lot of questions, some people don't have any questions, but we're here to help them through the settlement process and understand everything in the documents. The money is still not received at that point. And at that time, if the person has already been receiving weekly benefit checks, those benefit checks will continue because the case is still ongoing. As a matter of fact, if somebody has to get more medicine, for example, if they have a monthly refill and the first of the month comes, they can go and get it refilled because the case continues until the settlement is approved by the State Board of Workers' Compensation. Once we get
And
it
what
signed, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, what happens after the State Board of Workers' Compensation approves it?
Well, let's go through the process until we get to that point. So once we get it signed back from our client, we review to make sure that it's signed in the proper places. We sign the document, and then we return it to the lawyer for the insurance company. And again, we should be able to get that out within a day of receiving it. At that point, the documents are in the hands of the insurance company lawyer. That lawyer then has to sign the documents and file the settlement documents with the State Board of Workers' Compensation. This can be done electronically, should happen within a couple of days. I usually give myself a note for a week. So if we don't see anything, we write back and say, is there anything we need to do to help you so that you can file the documents? Once the documents are filed with the State Board of Workers' Compensation, there is a settlement unit at the State Board of Workers' Compensation that has to approve all of the settlement. Now, I should say that the State Board of Workers' Compensation is still working, it is still open, and the settlement section is still working. And I would imagine you found also that cases are getting settled in the same time frame that I've seen all along, which is generally from a day to about a week, especially in cases where there are lawyers on both sides.
Yeah,
Occasionally there,
a lot of it depends upon the intricacies of the claim. The larger the claim with the more moving parts, the longer it takes. But typically, I'm seeing, 24 hours for approval on a case.
right, I had one case recently in which the insurance company made a couple of minor errors as far as really the presentation of the documents, and we had to refile it a couple of times to get it, in the format that the state board wanted. There's been a couple of growing pains with people doing a lot more things remotely. I recently also had a case that settled for over $1 million, and in the cases that settled for over $1 million, the appellate division directors of the state board like to have an extra layer of approval to make sure that particularly the injured worker is treated fairly by the settlement. And luckily in our case, they did approve it and we were able to move forwards with the settlement. Once the settlement is approved and you get a notification from the state board, the case basically stops at that point. So for example, if our clients were getting weekly checks, they will not get weekly checks anymore. Also, any medical that's been provided stops at that point. At that point, the insurance company then has 20 days to pay. If they don't pay the settlement within 20 days, then there's a 20% penalty that they have to pay. So if the case settles for $100,000, they have to pay an extra $20,000 to both the attorney, which is broken up between the attorney and the injured worker. So there's a pretty significant incentive for them to pay within the 20 days. Once that happens, we get the checks and make sure that everything is in order, and you get the money to our clients quite quickly after that. Um,
The one thing I tell my clients is you want the insurance company to send the check out the day of the settlement approval or after 20 days. And
I,
quite frankly, that is typically how it works. Insurance companies are very conscientious of every single dollar spent. So once the State Board of Workers' Compensation approves a settlement, we are receiving checks within 2 to 3 days. And typically it's via FedEx, UPS, or express mail.
yes, I would agree with that. And I usually tell my clients that it takes 4 to 6 weeks from the time of settlement until they get the money. Obviously, we hope it's faster, but a number of the things that go on are out of our hands, in terms of how quickly do we get the settlement documents. We can't really control that if the insurance lawyer doesn't send it to us promptly. How quickly do they file it with the state board? Again, once we send the documents, it's out of our hands. And finally, the 20 days to pay, they're allowed to pay any time within the 20 days. So that's 3 weeks. So that's why we usually say 4 to 6 weeks.
If you have any questions about settlement of a workers' compensation case, please don't hesitate to contact the attorneys at Gerber and Holder at 678-802-8650. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Ben.